probably one of the most difficult challenges of international policy that we face today, where we have scientific realities that are linked to technological challenges. Those technological challenges affect our economies. The economic implications have direct impacts on labor groups. Those have implications for different geographic areas and our politics. Those feed into our national policy debates, and where we stand on the national policy debates affects our ability to negotiate international agreements, and the cumulative total of those international agreements brings us back to the overall scientific impact all over again, which means that we have a loop here which is inescapable and phenomenally complicated at each step of the way. And some of the individuals that we'll be listening to today have been at the center of working through that terribly difficult conundrum. This is an issue which needs all governments to participate, or all countries to participate, or at least the major emitters, because we don't simply have the luxury of allowing some to drop out. That additional ounce of carbon that is emitted, it makes no difference whether it comes from Detroit or Newcastle or Beijing or Hokkaido. And so it is absolutely critical that we bring countries into this equation. Yet at the same time, we have differing geopolitical camps. We have, for example, the European Union, which has focused very strongly on creating mandatory targets and caps within those targets. The United States has generally focused on nationally binding commitments, although we'll look forward to Jim Connaughton's talk and some of the messages that he's been carrying across Europe on whether the United States might be willing to look more broadly at some form of an internationally binding agreement. There are countries such as China and India who basically argue that the problem of carbon concentrations was created by the industrialized world, and they shouldn't be expected to pay the increased or incremental cost of carbon mitigation. And so therefore they're looking for means to, in fact, pay for the differential between business as usual technologies and clean technologies. There's a whole part of the world that is going to be affected by climate change. They're concerned by adaptation, or for many, they're simply saying there are 1.6 billion people that simply do not have access to electricity. Where does our chance come, and where do we get the resources? And finally, there's yet another geopolitical group that has not been adequately explored or looked at, which is the energy-producing countries that have accumulated massive wealth and could be part of the solution in investing in technology. The reason I mention that is that it's part of the challenge of figuring out how all of these geopolitical groups can be brought together into one form of an agreement that matches our interests globally in being able to mitigate carbon emissions, at the same time be able to sustain the growth of our economies and look at the differential interests that a number of countries have. And that's really the fundamental problem that we're trying to deal with today.